Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Lamenters, brought to you by Coke Zero. No, I wish. That'd be pretty awesome if we were sponsored by Coke Zero. So anybody working for Coke, if you have that hookup, I'm a loyal fan. All right, so we are picking up right where we left off. You guys had arrived at the Soldier's Rest, an inn that was kind of in the country along a road between two towns in the Borderlands. This much you have determined. And you've met some interesting characters and discovered some interesting things. But you have all settled down in your rooms at the Soldier's Rest. And the last person, I think, to go to bed were Sarah and Bivoj. And Sarah had offered to share that room with Katarina, who graciously accepted. So Bivoj and Sarah, you're sharing a bed, and then Sarah basically gave her bed to Katarina. And Sarah, you mentioned that you stay up for a little while, and you do for probably half hour. At which point you hear Bivoj snoring, and you hear Katarina like breathing heavily, like you would imagine someone who is sleeping.
Well, I want to just think about something. In light of the new information we got about the current war, which wasn't happening where we were, or maybe it was, I don't know. But I'm thinking, and I hope I get a vision or something, I'm thinking that maybe some of us were on both sides of that.
Okay, we haven't done this in a while. Time to make an intelligence roll under.
Okay. Intelligence roll.
As you're kind of resting in bed in the dark, a little bit of moonlight coming through the window, you kind of let your mind relax and you start to think about this stuff.
Okay, here we go. I don't believe I did it.
What'd you roll?
I rolled a 17 of
Nope.
15. Nope.
So you think about it, and certainly it's something that you would think about, because it seems that maybe that's a possibility. Maybe some of these hazy memories that you have could be somehow related to this conflict that you only recently kind of learned about and know very little about. So perhaps, but nothing really jogs any memories for you.
Well, then I'm going to crawl into bed with my sheathed dagger kind of by my side and clutching it. So
Okay.
Isn't the first time.
I'm going to have some people make some rolls, and I'm not going to tell you what you're rolling for. So I'll start with Bivoj. Roll a d20 for me, Bivoj. Just tell me the straight roll.
All right, it's 16.
Okay. Followed by Sarah.
Okay. 15.
Okay. Then I'll have Havardr. You roll.
8.
Okay. And then Claude, I need you to make a roll.
19.
And then I need you to make another roll for your dog.
15.
Okay. Oldrad, you're the last one to make a roll.
Okay.
I'm going to roll for Liber and for Bane.
I rolled a 4.
What was the total?
4.
A 4. God damn it. All right. Oldrad, you're resting. You're like, it's so nice to be in a bed.
Yeah, I'm hurt.
And yeah, and you're like hoping for a good night rest. And then you hear like the creaking of floorboards, like outside of your room, like in the hallway outside of the rooms. So just to imagine this, you're on the second floor of this inn.
Yeah.
It doesn't have a really tall ceiling. It's like an 8-foot ceiling. And there's a hallway that leads to stairs. And there are 4 rooms on this hallway in a direct line, not like across from each other. So there's 4 rooms consecutively with a hallway, and then that leads to the stairs to go down into the main part of the inn. And what you think you hear is like, movement, kind of creaking on the floorboards.
Okay.
And I should mention that you know that the innkeeper and his family, they live on the first floor.
Right. Yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and sit up, extremely annoyed. My body hurts all over from the past 24 hours and all the wounds I have.
Yes.
And I'm gonna pick up my battle axe and walk to the door and open it and look down the hall.
Okay, bear in mind, no candles are lit. You have a little bit of light from the window, a little bit of moonlight. You get up and open the door. When you open the door, you see candlelight, like a little bit of flickering of candlelight. And you see a woman who you then recognize as Katarina, wearing like a nightgown, and she's got a candlestick holder, and she sees you and she's like, "Oh, I'm sorry. Did I wake you? I just need to make my way to the outhouse."
Okay, just checking if everything was okay.
Yes, I'm sorry if I woke you. And she
Good night.
walks past you, and you hear the creaky stairs as she goes down. And a few moments later, you hear the creaky front door as it opens.
Yeah. I lean my axe against my bed and get back in.
Okay. I would say 5 minutes later is about how long it is before you hear the door open. You hear the footsteps creaking up the stairs, down the hallway. You hear a door open again. Sarah and Bivoj, both of you make D20 rolls for me.
14.
4.
Okay, Sarah, you hear the door open to your room, and you see candlelight flickering as Katarina re-enters. You don't remember her leaving. You must have been asleep.
Okay.
But you see she walks over to the little nightstand that's between the 2 beds, and she sets the candle down, and she pulls her sheets back, and then sits down on the bed, and then she leans forward and goes to blow out the candle.
Well, I went to sleep in my regular clothes. I just took a top layer off, and when I hear her come in, I get out of bed real quick, and I have the dagger out.
She says, "Oh, I'm sorry, Sarah. I didn't mean to startle you. I just had to go to the outhouse, but I'm going to bed now. I'm sorry if I woke you." She sets the candle down.
Can we have a talk?
She says, "Certainly." And she leaves the candle lit on the nightstand, and she sits down on the bed, kind of facing your bed. Bivoj still asleep. His face is facing the wall. His back is to you.
May I sit here on the bed with you?
So you're on the bed right across from her. So you're sitting on your bed. She's sitting on yours, like you're facing each other.
Oh, okay. Okay. I've heard tell of a Katerina, and I mentioned the last name. Marjit something?
Margolace.
Yeah.
She's like, I've never heard of this person.
Hmm.
How is the name spelled?
Tell her. As best I can.
So you remember how it's spelled? You think that it was Catarina.
Yeah.
And she says, oh, mine is Katharina.
Yeah, but that's your first name. I'm talking
Yes.
about the last name.
She says, oh, Margolace. I'll make a roll for her. If I miraculously roll, oh, holy shit, I rolled a 2. All right, so apparently she has some historical context. She says, realistically, I don't know how much she would know. She says, I think there was a noble house of Margolace from either Hazidas or Avendia. I'm pretty sure that there was a noble house, but this is like centuries ago.
Yeah.
She's like,
Apparently she got married to a Lord Jourdain. Aowi? I don't remember the last name. Io? Something like that.
she's like, I've never heard of that.
Hmm.
She's like, I feel like I remember something about a house Margolace, but I don't think, I think at one point maybe they didn't have any heirs and the house fell. She's like, I don't really know much more than that. I just know it was a long time ago.
Yeah. Well,
She's like, my family's not from Avendia. My family's originally from Dronteroff. She said, but my family moved to this area long ago, in the time of my grandfather, I believe.
yeah.
And we are not nobility. She says,
Okay.
I was fortunate because of my father's work as a merchant to be able to have some tutoring and some education. But we are not a noble house. My last name is Ruppel.
Okay. Then I want to apologize.
Like, how about you, Sarah? Where are you from?
Oh, I'm from the Eastern Kingdoms.
Oh, I've never been there. I've heard it's very nice, though.
Yeah, it is. And as opposed to the Western Kingdoms, a little more peaceful. We're a merchant family. We have holdings, land holdings, and from there we've developed a trading system. We have sheep and cows and grains and stuff, and we trade various things in that area for the kingdom in Southport. And we also
your family trades
are into transporting.
Your family trades in Southport?
Yeah. We have a warehouse there.
She says, I might know. What's your family name?
Marjit.
She says, I'm sorry, I'm not familiar with that name.
Yeah.
She says, so your family is from the south of the Eastern Kingdoms?
Yeah, we're from Celestia.
Ah. And does your family still conduct business in Southport?
Yeah,
Splendid.
I think
Well,
so.
That's refreshing to hear. I didn't know that the embargo had allowed that sort of thing.
Okay. We have been in the wilderness for quite some while. And when we went to the wilderness, there was no embargo that I knew of. What is this?
She says, you've been in the wilderness, but you don't know about the embargo?
How long has the embargo been going on?
I think at least 10 or 12 years since the Imperial War started. She says, you must have been in the wilderness for a long time.
What year did the Imperial War start?
Just after the storms. As she says this, make a intelligence roll under.
Let's see what we got here. Yep, 9.
As she says the storms, you have this flash. You're on a road, it's nighttime, it's pouring rain. You're in some kind of caravan with people. There are people on horses. You hear the sounds of boots marching and horses clopping, and you even hear like the creaking of like wagon wheels perhaps ahead of you. And every once in a while, lightning will flash in the sky, and it illuminates this scene of you marching down this road in kind of an open expanse towards something. What you're marching towards, though, you don't see in this flashback, but you know you feel like you were there and you were marching towards something, and it was happening during a storm. And when the lightning flashed, not only did it kind of briefly illuminate the area that you were in, but there was almost like a sort of in your peripheral vision in this memory, it's almost like the lightning, when it flashed, the sky looked almost purple. And then you're like back. And she says,
is this familiar from my other visions of being in an army?
It's kind of familiar.
Okay.
But you can't quite place where you were or when this was. But it's kind of like a flash, like you had when you first woke up in the mountains.
Oh yeah, the storms. Yeah.
She says, yeah, I think she says, I think the embargo probably happened in maybe 1122. I'm fairly certain that it was early on in the Imperial Wars.
Who were the parties to the embargo?
Well, the embargo was, once the Empire took Southport, that's when they gave the ultimatum, and the kingdoms that chose not to join their alliance were cut off from trade.
Is this the Western empires that took Southport?
Well, the Empire is seated. She's like, how do you not know this? And she looks at you like quizzically. She's like, and she looks at you and she says, you must have known about this if your family's involved in trade. And she says, I don't understand.
Yeah, I don't either. Others in my family handled the business. I don't have a head for business.
She says, well, when the uprising happened after the storms, Avendia was the first one to declare the mandate. Drontorov joined Avendia, and those two kingdoms effectively became the empire. After that, Hazidas resisted for a while, but I think by 1122, they pledged their allegiance to the empire. And after they pledged their allegiance, that's when the empire took Southport. And once Southport had been taken and occupied by the empire, the eastern kingdoms were cut off. None of the eastern kingdoms agreed to the imperial mandate. And that was pretty much when the wars started. She says,
So
and
it's
that's
basically
how it's been for, I don't know, the better part of the last 12 years or so since all of that happened.
so the war is basically between the eastern and western kingdoms, with Castle Lee being some kind of holdout.
She says, well, the northern part of the borderlands are not considered occupied. They're still considered free. She says a lot of people speculate that Lee County has allegiances with the Eastern Kingdoms, but they haven't declared anything. So the Empire has kind of left them alone, largely because there's not a lot of value in the north of the borderlands. And the Empire has, even when they've gone as far north as Angner, for example, they usually end up pulling back because more often than not, they're focused on holding Southport. Southport is the linchpin for the Empire's dominance, and their focus is preventing any of the Eastern kingdoms from taking Southport.
I see. Yeah, their supply lines run out and they can't go any further. I understand that. Okay, well, I've taken up too much of your time. I'll think on this.
She says, certainly. And she says, good night, Sarah.
Good night, Katerina.
She blows out the candle and gets into bed. Okay, anyone doing anything else? Or are you all going to sleep?
Sleep.
Sleep.
Yeah, sleep.
Okay.
Definitely sleeping.
You wake up the next morning, and all of you regain 2 hit points. Congratulations, everyone.
Whoa.
Riveting.
You got to sleep in a nice, comfortable bed, and the next morning you awaken to the sounds of breakfast being made and the smell of breakfast being made, and you awaken to the sounds of the doors. Your doors receive a little knock, and you hear a child's voice that says, "Breakfast is being served." And then the child goes to the next door, knock, knock. "Breakfast is being served." So all of you are awoken. The sun's coming through the window, so you feel like it's not early morning like dawn, but it's maybe you slept until 7:30 or 8. Do you guys descend for breakfast?
Well, I'm still. Yeah,
Yeah, I'll
I'll,
come down for breakfast.
Okay, so
I'll
Dressed
throw-
and armored.
I'll throw Veet's clothes on his bed next to him.
You notice when you wake up that Katerina is gone. Like you see that the bed has been made, and her pile of clothes is not there.
Okay.
Just wake up
I'm hungry.
and go down and
Okay. So as you guys you go downstairs, you see in the common room the 3 long tables. At one of the tables, you see the Herzog family. Yarla, the wife, and the children are eating some breakfast. You see that Griswold comes out with a platter with a bunch of scrambled eggs and some sausage and bacon along the sides, and then a bowl of fruit. He sets that down at a table and goes and gets another round of that stuff for another table. At the middle table, you see Katerina and Anna, the scout that came in with her, as well as the 2 other gentlemen that she arrived with. And then the third table is open.
let's sit there and start. Oh, is there already breakfast prepared, or do we have
Yes.
to order?
Nope, it's already
Okay.
prepared. So as you guys
Yeah.
sit down at one of the tables, you kind of crowd into one of the tables. When you come down, Katerina turns and she sees you and says, "Good morning. How did you all sleep?"
Well, it was definitely more comfortable than the wilds, and certainly way better than yesterday.
She says, "Excellent." And she says, and thank you again, Sarah, for offering such kind hospitality. It was so wonderful to sleep in a real bed.
Yeah. We girls got to stick together, you know.
She smiles and nods. As you guys sit down, Griswold comes out with a pitcher of what looks like maybe some juice, like apple juice or apple cider, and he sets it down. And there's plates and utensils and mugs, so you guys begin eating breakfast. You notice that the 2 men that had accompanied Katerina and Anna, they're finishing up their breakfast, and it looks like Katerina's just starting hers. And one of them leans forward and speaks to Anna, the scout, and says, and he finishes up a bite and he says, "We'll go out and get the horses ready." And Anna just nods. And the 2 of them get up and they kind of nod to the innkeeper, and then they walk out.
After they left, I'm going to go up to the bar and talk to Griswold. Do you have any? I'm just going to order some stuff for Critter to eat and drink. And as I'm up there, sir, does the name Red Crescent ring any bells?
No.
No, you haven't. Okay. Just wondering if that ever got down here, the whole story about it, but.
Is it the name of a trading company or something, perhaps?
Not quite. There was some stuff we had going on in Lee County a while ago. Just wondering if you know anything about it.
Can't say that I do.
All right, no worries.
You see that he takes the plates. Yarla brings the kids' plates up to the counter, and then she kind of moves the kids into their side of the the inn where they live. And Griswold takes like the scraps of food and kind of consolidates them all into a bowl, and then he hands that to you and he says, "Here you go for your dog."
All right. Thanks.
There's some eggs and toast and some meat.
Yep. Yeah. Take it back to the table and put it on the ground for Critter.
Critter scarfs it, gobbles it up. Havardr, are you doing anything in particular during the breakfast time?
Just sitting with my crew, eating some breakfast. Nothing special.
The breakfast is hearty. Leonard, are you doing anything during this time?
Yeah, I would like to address group over the breakfast. So, what do we plan to do? Where do we plan to go now?
Well,
Any options? I heard that Lee County shouldn't be so far from here. Maybe there is some city close by. Those are all valid options. Or did any of you figure out any special sense of direction where they want to go?
I think we should learn more about our time predicament. Like, what the hell this year actually is? What actually happened? I don't remember anything.
Yeah.
well, I kind of lean into the table and make it look like I'm scarfing food off my plate. And I say, when these people leave, we have to talk. Not now.
Okay.
Definitely.
You see that Anna is finishing up her breakfast, and she kind of just wipes the grease off onto her sleeve, and then she gets up without saying anything and walks outside. You guys are eating. You're about midway through your breakfast, and Katerina kind of turns around. This is after the Griswold family has left, and it's just you guys and Katerina at this point. And she turns around and she says, "Sarah, may I speak with you for a moment?"
Can it be said in front of my companions? I don't keep any secrets.
She seems to contemplate this for a moment, and then her eyes dart over to Liber, and she says, "I suppose so."
He's okay.
She says, and she kind of leans in, she gets up and stands kind of at the end of your guys' table. So she's sort of leaning in, and you see her eyes look past you guys to the bar. And then she leans in and she says, "Based on our conversation last night, I got the impression that perhaps you folks weren't entirely aware of current events here, at least in this area in the Borderlands. And you seem like very nice people, and certainly," and she looks at Liber when she says this, and she says, and certainly devoted to the one true God. But on the off chance that you perhaps weren't aware, you're kind of at a demilitarized zone right now. You see, where we are right now is sort of the border between the north of the Borderlands and the south. The further south you go along the Nargan River, the closer you are to the occupied territories, the territories occupied by the Empire. If you go north, you're going into a neutral area. The town north of here, Angner, is a free town, and Lee County is also a neutral area. She says, I say this only because you should know that there's a lot of rumors about the borderlands north of here. A lot of rumors saying that there are heretics and that the people there don't believe in the one true God. She says, you wouldn't happen to have heard about anything like that, would you?
It happens. I had an aunt that we all thought was a little crazy who talked about such things, but we kept her shielded, you know.
She says, well, in any case, I thought that you should be aware that that seems like something that you might want to know about. And certainly there are pros and cons, of course, to any decision, but if you sought a larger city, for example, the next largest city is Southport, which is many days travel to the south of here. All you'd have to do is follow the river, and you'll get to Southport eventually. But just, I hope that whatever you choose, that you're safe, because there are rumors that there are a lot of folk in the Borderlands who conspire against the Empire, and the Empire has eyes and ears everywhere.
What about the Three Rivers region?
She says, well, yes, that's the last stop before Southport, and it's certainly occupied. I mean, there are Imperial soldiers there. There's a garrison there. There's a small fort near Oak Point, and well, there used to be a fort near Morath, but it was recently sabotaged, and the fort was burned down. When we were on our way north, we heard about it, and it sounded like a terrible thing. Apparently, there was a group of Imperial soldiers who decided to commit treason, and they sabotaged the fort's defenses and burned down the fort, and it killed a lot of innocent people.
Oh my God!
I've heard that the Empire is looking for the traitors, and yeah, so I guess just be careful.
So it is unwise to voice opinions about the old gods.
She looks around and she's like, do you know about the old gods?
Not at
No,
all. Not at all.
just stories.
She says,
Just
oh,
stories.
yes, I've heard
Nothing
stories as well. I've heard
important.
stories as well. Yes. Yes, it's there's so many rumors. It's hard to discern what is true from what is false.
Well, Katrina, you've made me think, and the closest thing I can remember to heretics would be the people of the group of the Red Crescent, but those have been dealt with back up in Lee County, so I don't think they're still around. But
She looks at you and she says, "Oh, they're still around."
they are.
Yes.
What are they up to then? We thought we.
She says, "Have you never been to Southport?"
No, I haven't.
She says, "Well, I don't know about heretics, but the Red Crescent is one of the militant orders of the Western Church that serves the Empire. They hunt heretics. Their base is in Southport. You can recognize them. They wear priestly robes, but they're white robes with red trim.
Mm-hmm.
And they bear a mark of a red crescent embroidered onto their robes." She says, "I wouldn't want to cross them."
Interesting. As far as I know, the people from the Red Crescent up in Lee County were dealt with and eradicated. And you're saying that they are still around?
She says, "Yes. If you were to go to Southport, you might see them. In fact, any of the executions having to do with heretics, you'll always see a member of the Red Crescent presiding."
How interesting. That's not what I gathered from what was happening in up north.
She says, "Well, I can't speak to anything north of here."
They were doing quite nefarious things.
As far as I know, the Red Crescent is sanctioned by the church to carry out very specific tasks. Those being hunting down heretics.
Do we happen to know the name of the current king, magistrate, whatever, of Lee County?
She says, I don't personally know. Again, I don't travel to the north of the borderlands because it's reputed to be so very unsafe.
Yeah.
Now, meta moment. Are you asking me, does Claude know the name of the current Lord of Lee County?
Well, I know the name of the leader back from my time in
Yes.
Lee Castle.
So Claude would remember that the Lord of Lee County was Lord Trenton Lee.
Yeah, and that he was one of those what you call them? Infiltrated, vampiristic zombie that was faked over carried over by the Red Crescent, magic spells, whatever.
I don't know if Claude would have known that, but let's say that Lord Trenton Lee was the Lord of Lee County at the time that you last remember. So
Yeah,
are you asking Katarina if she knows who the current Lord is?
Yeah.
Yeah, she's like, I don't know. I don't keep up with the politics of the northern borderlands.
Okay. All right. Well, thanks anyway. But I would say keep an eye out for those Red Crescent folks. They're not as good as I don't think they're as good as you think they are.
She says, "Oh, I don't know that I would claim for them to be good per se, but they are sanctioned by the Empire and the Western Church." And she says, "Well, we are going to be traveling, trying to use the daylight while we have it. So I wish you all safe travels. Regardless of what direction you go in, I hope that you are all safe. And thank
Yeah,
you
you too,
again.
Katarina.
She kind of does a polite nod. After which she goes to her coin pouch and takes out a stack of coins and sets them on the counter. And then kind of waits for a moment. You don't see any of the Griswolds come out. And then she turns and she waves to you all and walks out the door.
Don't let Anna lose that sense of humor.
As soon as she leaves the door, Bivoj just slams onto the table and, guys, if the Three Rivers is like the bumper of this war, well, my family is there. With all those executions and whatever, I got to know what's happening back home. If we're so close that a few days of march could get us there, I have to know. If you're all with me, I'd much appreciate it, but I don't press on you. Like, it's just what concerns me. This does not seem right.
Sarah, you said that you assume that we lost some time or something?
No water.
Excuse me. I don't know. Katarina told me last night that there has been an embargo and that Southport has been taken over by the Western Kingdoms, and they're going north and around the Three Rivers place. They kind of peter out because of supply lines. There's the Eastern Kingdoms are kind of cut off, and there's something really strange going on. I mean, we in the Eastern Kingdoms knew that those in the Western Kingdoms, excuse what I say, are a little crazy, always fighting among each other and stuff. In the Eastern Kingdoms, we don't fight among each other. It's more peaceful, and the church is different. They're more charitable and less ostentatious.
Well, guys, what I remember, and this is going back to the issue of us not knowing what time we are now in and which time we came from, that whole mess in how we all got here. Back in where I'm from.
I remember a storm, and there was a flash of lightning, and we were going somewhere, a specific place. And after the lightning, the sky turned purple. Katarina mentioned the storms, and she said that the embargo started after the storms in 1122. And the Western Empire started as an uprising. Between Avendi and Dorantarov, and then and they became what's known as an empire. And then Hazadas joined them. No one in the Eastern Kingdoms joined them, and so it's been going on since then. The kingdom took Southport, and there's an embargo on trade. I think it's between the two kingdoms. I'm not sure.
As Sarah, let me interrupt. As Sarah explains this to you guys and relays this, particularly when she's talking about the flash that she had each one of you guys make an intelligence roll under.
$17. Not even
14.
close.
14 out of 18, so
Okay,
I
Leonard.
didn't make it.
I got 12 out of 6, so.
Okay, so
I got
Oh.
one over as well.
okay, so Leonard is the only one for whom this triggers a memory. Leonard, you have this flashback where you are also marching on a rain-soaked, muddy road, and the sounds of a wagon are right behind you, and the sounds of horses and other people marching on this watery road, and it's nighttime and it's pouring rain, and you're kind of marching with only like 5 feet of visibility ahead of you. You're holding a lantern, and you can't really see beyond the range of your lantern's light, and the combination of that and the rain just limits your visibility. But you, in this flashback, you perceive a lightning flash. And when the lightning flashes, 2 things are revealed in your memory. The first is that when the lightning flashes, the sky indeed looked purple. But the second thing is, way in the distance, you saw the silhouette of what looked like a tower. And then you snap back to the current moment.
And
Ah.
it occurred to me that some of us may have been on one side of this conflict and some of us may have been on the other.
From what I could remember, we were on some mission at least together. I do remember that we had some planning session, but not much from it. That's old memory from when we woke up. But it would be useful to know what and where we were supposed to go and do. And that was way before this, if you say so. I don't remember any war starting or even getting close to the war, so that must have been before it.
This is all very curious.
We were.
But what year did we ascertain from the coins it was?
You guys, what you have come to know between interactions with other people is that you believe that the year now is 1134.
Mhm.
And the last year you remember was 1120. And based on what your conversation with Katerina was, it sounds like that this storm thing that she referenced must have happened in 1120.
Well, we woke up to a storm.
Does crooked old tower in the mountains ring a bell for anyone? Just turn out to my group.
I just remember a storm. That's mostly what I remember.
Yeah, like I said, we woke up to a storm. So
As Leonard mentions this old tower, Havardr, Sarah, Claude, Bivoj, and Oldrad, you can all make intelligence roll unders.
Nope.
I got 2 out of 6.
I got 3 out of 6.
Oldrad did not make it.
Let's see. I think I went No, I don't think I went over. I got 13 out of 15.
Okay. Bivoj, Havardr, and Sarah. As Leonard mentions a tower, you have a flashback. You're marching at night through a storm. There's lightning flashes. But for some reason now you know that you are marching towards a tower. You don't see it in your flashback. You see people in front of you marching. You see horses. But you don't see a tower in your flashback. But for some reason in your memory, you were marching towards a tower. And your instinct is that you and this force that were going towards the tower were going there to stop something from happening.
As it seems, maybe we have failed our mission that was given to us all those years ago.
It might have failed, but what was the mission? Get to the tower and go there? That's a question.
Could have had something to do with magic.
Maybe to deal with some buffed, naked guys sent from the future.
Where'd you get that?
I don't know, it just occurred to me.
As you guys are talking, you hear the door, not the front door, the door from the family, the Griswold family's room, open. And Griswold, you see Griswold come out, and he kind of looks in the room, and you notice he sees the stack of coins on the counter, and he walks up and he takes the coins and he looks at you guys and he says, "Did they leave?"
Yes.
Well,
They say they would.
They paid and they left the door.
You see him walk over to the window and he kind of pulls the curtains apart and he looks out the window. He says, "Did you by chance see which direction they were going in?"
No, none of us got up to check.
No.
You see him go over to the front door and he goes outside. Through the window, you could see him kind of looking at the ground, and he walks all the way up to the front gate. And he looks up at the front, he looks at the road that's beyond the front gate to the inn. And you see him return, kind of in a fast walk. When he comes back in, he says, he closes the door and he says, "I think that they went south." Based on the fresh tracks, he goes, "Do you recall them mentioning where they were going?"
I think it's at Southport, right?
Yeah, they mentioned Southport a lot, but because we were speaking about it, but
Not as a destination. I don't know where they're going.
He says, but didn't they come here from the south?" He says, "I could have sworn that they said last night that they were going north to Anger."
Maybe they had more stuff at their old camp that they had to put up.
Wait a second. Maybe we are being sought.
do you think they would set up trap for us and specifically point us to Southport to...
Well, she said that the Empire has many eyes and ears.
He says, I'm in a precarious position, and I need your help." He says, "I can't jeopardize my own family's safety, so I cannot keep the Steiner family here any longer. if a patrol were to come and thoroughly check the inn, they would find the family. He's like, they must get out. He says, but I fear that it is not safe for them to travel by the road, as the roads are being watched. Would you be willing to escort the family, perhaps through the forest, to the north, and bring them safely to Angor?
Sure.
I don't
Look
have much,
around.
but I can give you some coin if you would help them.
Don't worry about coin.
Don't worry about coins. Maybe just provide us with enough food and drink for the trip.
Of course. Absolutely. He's like, I'll be attending to this. And he goes back into the kitchen, and you hear him call for his wife. She comes out of the family's room and goes into the kitchen.
Right. So, guys, there's one thing. Like I said, I mentioned the Red Crescent. I'm not sure if any of you guys know, but the tale we had going up in Lee Castle was that there was a band of adventurers, not unlike us, from Oak Point, and there was we had some like zombie infestation kind of, and they got done with them, but they found out there was some group called the Red Crescent doing nefarious stuff and rituals and things, and that actually Lord Trenton Lee, the lord of the county, has been like in place for decades and decades, if not centuries, and through some weird magic stuff, and those adventurers dispatched him and those apparently behind that. So, and those were folks from the Red Crescent. And for us, as commoners, we didn't know anything about the Red Crescent, that they even existed or anything. So for them to be here now puts me in a bind of like, how far am I from this time? Are we? Because we have no clue where we're from and how we got here. But there is a discrepancy here that I just can't get my head around. But that's what I have going on in my mind at the moment for figuring out where we're from and what's happening to us. Just so you know.
You see, with this predicament of the Steiner family and all of this, we can deal with that, I hope, pretty quickly, but I think that in the south we may find some clues, and if my family is still around, if they have not been executed yet, we may have, I would say, base of operation there.
Yeah.
So,
but if we're heading north,
yeah,
I feel
right
like
now,
continuing. I feel like continuing on to Lee County, maybe even Lee Castle, and see what's going on there. See if my family is there, and see if we can get something out of it.
Like right now, we
Katarina's-
have options.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Katarina seemed quite surprised that I didn't know about the embargo.
Yeah.
Yeah, that also puts us
I
in a
told her
precarious...
we've been in the wilderness for a long time.
Yeah, but that also puts us into precarious situation. Like, if the church is hunting so-called heretics, we might expose ourselves as ones.
Also, if anybody is of noble origin from the accidentally hostile country now, they might be precious hostage. So also target.
Well, I never was much for history, but what we're in now does not ring any bells for me. It doesn't feel like it's something that is current with the time I know. And it seems so far back that it's like I said, it's way past our regular history kind of thing. So I'm just baffled. And like I said, I was figuring if we're going head north, I would like to try and head to Lee County, Lee Castle, or even just Oak Point if that is closer by, and figure out what's going on, at least for my sanity.
As you guys are finishing discussing this, Griswold comes out of the kitchens, and you see that he has two like satchel bags of what you presume to be food over his shoulder. And then you see Yarla, his wife, come out. She goes to the window, looks out the window, goes to the door, opens the door, and she goes out to the gate, to the road. And you see her kind of look both ways up the road. And then she comes back in and she says, "It looks like the coast is clear." And Griswold nods. And you see him knock 3 times on the wooden door jamb. And a moment later, you hear a creaking sound. And then you see the Steiner family emerge from the kitchen. And they kind of look very, very nervous and worried. But you notice that that Griswold seems urgent. And he says, "The time is now if you are to go and take them." He says, "If the coast is clear, now is the time to go."
Okay.
I'm not sure the coast is clear. I'm wondering if they're just waiting for us to leave.
Yarla says, "There's no one on the road." She says, "You're not going up the road anyway, are you?" And Griswold says, "No. They'll have to go behind the inn into the forest and go north and then cut back east to Ignar."
I hope they won't start hunting us after we don't show up on the road.
At this point, Bane, and I'm doing this based on how Heath was in the last game. Bane stands up, like slinging his sword, and says, "I'm not going to let anything bad happen to this family. Are we traveling together to take them to safety?"
Yeah, I think it's the best course of action anyway.
Yes, my friend.
Bane nods.
I believe so also.
Griswold nods, and he hands the 2 satchels of food to Steiner, who takes it. Steiner's wife kind of corrals the kids and takes their hands, and Bane heads towards the door. Everybody
You know,
going?
I just wanna
I'll follow Bane.
I just want to
Um,
say that and the tracker woman seemed very, very experienced.
Yeah,
Yeah.
good that we have someone that knows his way in the wilds as well.
Well, I'm heading back up to the room and getting the rest of my stuff, like my weapons, etc.
We have
Yeah.
Critter.
Also,
Right.
also picking the rest of my stuff.
Okay.
No.
You guys take a few more minutes. You get the rest
Yeah, I
of your
will
stuff. You go out the door and go around behind the house. Griswold actually accompany you guys, and he goes to a small wooden fence at the back of the yard of the inn, and he kind of opens up a gate, and it looks like this is not a gate that's commonly used, like the grass is kind of grown up around it, and he kind of pulls the gate open, and he looks to Steiner and he says, "Good luck, my friend. I hope that your family will be safe." And you see him like do kind of like a hug with Steiner, and Steiner does a hug as well. Oldrad and I'll roll for Bane. Oldrad, make a wisdom roll under.
Would it be fair to say that Ludwig would know the area? That he could basically guide us?
12 under for Oldrad.
12 under?
Yeah.
Okay, I'll message you.
Okay.
Ludwig doesn't know this area.
Okay.
So he's kind of counting on you guys. But I mean, based on the fact that it's morning, you know which direction north is. It's just a question of how far into the forest you're going to go to head north. So you're kind of going west into the forest a little bit, and then north quite a ways, and then back east towards the river to get to Aegner.
Okay.
So kind of like you're going back to the chateau.
Around.
We just want another audience with Jourdain.
So here's what I'm going to have all of you do. Nobody has bushcraft, right? So you all have a 1 in 6 chance of making sure that you don't get lost in the
On
forest.
the level up, I added 1 pip to bushcraft because it's stuff that was missing a lot.
There you go, buddy. Nicely played. All right, everybody make a D6 roll, and if you get a 1, you're successful.
Nope.
Yes, 1.
That's a 6.
Nope.
Nope.
I got 2.
Nowhere near.
Ah! So 1d6, right? I got a 1.
Did anybody else get a 1?
Leonard.
So Sarah and Leonard, you begin kind of like making your way into the woods. The Steiner family's following you. Bane is bringing up the rear just in case you guys, are being followed, that kind of stuff. You travel through the woods for about a mile west, and then you begin kind of heading north. And this is the same forest that you guys were in before, when you stumbled upon the cursed chateau. You travel for about 10 miles north, and this is what I would call mostly difficult terrain. So you're not making great time. There's a lot of underbrush. Occasionally you kind of come across like a little deer path so you can make some easier time, but quite a few times you end up having to kind of hack your way through. Does anybody do anything specifically during this time while you're traveling?
Oldrad is... Go ahead. Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, sorry. I'm just making note of the surroundings. I really don't want to go back to Cursed Chateau.
Okay.
Could
Oldrad?
Bane and I rub out our tracks?
You could
Try
try.
and hide it?
You could try. Make a D6 roll. I'll roll for Bane. Definitely
That's a 3.
Yeah, you try. There's some points at which there's no way you could fix it because you had to like hack your way through underbrush, but you try. Oldrad, what were you gonna say?
As we're just traveling, Oldrad's just contemplating like on this whole being out of time, but he's putting his faith in the old gods that they have put him on the right path, considering what he saw between Steiner and Herzog.
You feel like you're on the right path.
I will try to ask Steiner how he got into this predicament on the way. If he...
So he kind of like walks up closer to you. His wife and kids are kind of more towards the middle or back of your line of travel. And he says, well, I served. I was conscripted. The Empire in the early days, there was a lot of enthusiasm. He says, I'm sure Herzog mentioned to you how he also was a soldier in the Imperial Army. He says, it's odd because he's a few years older than me. Well, more than a few years older than me. But he served in the Imperial Army in the early days. And he served in the army during the invasion of Southport and occupation for some time after that. But he was wounded and he was discharged, which allowed him to move his family. And I believe that's when he moved to the borderlands and built his home, which over time he built additions to his home and was able to turn it into an inn. He said, but I served, I was conscripted 3 years ago, and my family had sailed from the port city of Oba to Southport. I served occupation duty in Southport for some time until my unit was dispatched to the fort in Morath. He says, we had a few attacks from rebels, which were easily dispatched. He said, but about a month ago, our unit received orders to conduct a patrol, a river patrol, which we did, but the captain of our unit took it a bit too far. And there was a few fishing families that lived along the river. Captain was suspicious. We conducted searches of their homes, and in one of the homes we found an old carving. Not really sure of its significance, but the captain was convinced that it was a carving used by heretics. And he ordered us to burn down the homes.
Okay, so nobody's showing the sword. And who has the sword? I turn to him.
What did the carving look like?
He said, well, I mean, it didn't look that impressive really at all. It was kind of like a figure almost. Looked like almost like a figure of a man holding a fork. The captain wasn't satisfied with just burning down the homes. And that's when he ordered us to hang the man who lived in that home. He says it just didn't sit right with me. These were just innocent folk. They were just commoners, like anyone else, just families, and I couldn't wash the memory of it from my mind. When we got back to the fort, I decided to look into things myself. And one night I snuck into the captain's quarters. And I found a missive from the Inquisitors, and it had detailed information about families throughout the borderlands. Families in Three Rivers and Morath and Oak Point and Angner, with detailed notes about the households, their occupations, who they knew, where they'd traveled, everything. And I realized that we weren't just serving occupation duty anymore. We were basically serving the Inquisitors. He says, I couldn't in good conscience continue doing what we were doing, knowing that what we did to those fishing people was just the beginning of what the Inquisitors wanted our captain and our unit to do. He says, so I followed my conscience. I stole the missive. I barred the door to the main house in the fort, and I covered it with oil and burned it down. And then I fled. I fled the fort. I went back to Morath. I grabbed my family. We crossed the river into Oak Point, and then we traveled north along the road until we arrived at Griswold's. Griswold was kind enough and perhaps sympathetic enough to take me in, but I understand he couldn't jeopardize his own family knowing that there was a hunt for me. He says, and that's my story. He says, I'm not a heretic. I believe in the one true God, but I also couldn't in good conscience continue to be some kind of executioner serving the Inquisitors and their paranoia.
So,
Just by any chance, do you have any recollection of a woodcutter family or fisherman family from the Three Rivers region? Names like Yetrich or Sujivoy, does that ring a bell at all?
He says, it not off the top of my head. I only skimmed the list, but if you get my family safely to Angner, I'm more than happy to share with you what I found on the missive.
All right, let's get you there. And Bivoj storms from the group like 20, 30, maybe 50 yards ahead, just scouting for any possible like traps or any
Right.
ambushes, and anyone that could be hiding in the forest with
Okay.
a little bit of anger under his coat.
I'm going to have you make a wisdom roll under, but then I'm also going to have Claude and Leonard roll me another d6 for bushcraft.
All right, it's D20, is it?
Yeah.
So I have 4 out of 6.
Okay. Leonard, you got a 5 out of 6? Claude?
5.
Muted.
I rolled a 3 on my 1 for bushcraft, so that's a fail.
Okay. You still know roughly which direction is north, but you guys have kind of meandered off from your original thing. You're not completely lost, but it's going to take a little longer than you might have thought. Bivoj, as you kind of run and scout up ahead, you come across a small creek just moving slowly, kind of heading southwest and northeast on the diagonal. And you see just over the creek, you see a dirt path that seems to go west and then north. And it
Oh man.
It looks familiar, B-boy.
I think we went too far west. We should go a little bit more southward, just to go around that accursed place. Yeah, no more encounters with those.
How many kids are there?
3.
3?
Yeah, and these are younger kids. So to remind you guys, like Griswold was like in his 40s. Like he had like a teenage daughter and 2 tweens. Steiner is younger. He's like in his 20s. Him and his wife have little ones.
Toddlers, basically?
They have a toddler and then 2 like younger kids.
Okay.
Yeah, this will be a problem. We have to go around.
Yeah.
We have to move south. East. I'm sorry. East a little
So
bit.
you guys eventually catch up to where Bivoj is. You see the creek, you see the dirt path, and you feel like you're maybe at most 100 yards from the Curse Chateau.
Yeah, we don't want to go there again.
Let's try to keep safe distance this time. Yeah, let's move.
Let's head east. Like
Yeah.
that's the
So-
best option we have right now. Just
Outside
to
the
move
wall,
around.
shouldn't- as long as you stay far away on the outside wall, I don't think that there's much danger.
Yeah, but let's stay in the forest.
Yeah.
We don't know how far this curse or whatever extends.
We found which was it, Liber, and who was the second who got knocked out in this chateau? I can't remember right now.
I think Havardr.
Yeah.
Oldrad.
We found them here, so I would assume that the curse lingers to this point. So I would.
If I may, let us just skirt the Curse Chateau and go around it,
Yeah.
but not obviously not enter it.
Oh, never.
Yeah. I seriously hope we don't come to find any residents.
We're an
Hmm.
able
I s-
group. We escaped once, and we're smart enough to not enter this time. We're just gonna go around it. But I think it would save us some time because we've already gone off path just to go directly around it.
I speak to the wife and I tell her, keep your children close.
So she's carrying the toddler, like the 2-year-old, and then the 4-year-old and 6-year-old are just like walking next to her.
Hey, I've been down to those kids and I say, you stay close to your mom. Don't go wandering off.
They nod. They've been
Please.
relatively quiet this whole time. Every once in a while, the toddler like whines or cries a little bit, and then she kind of pacifies him.
Yeah.
So, are you gonna take a peek?
Let's skirt it.
All right. So you kind of you cross the creek. You go kind of along the path,
Heck no.
but you're running parallel. What's interesting is that you go about 100 yards up, and through the trees, you don't see anything. You don't see the hedge maze, you don't see the walls, you don't see the chateau. You just see forest. And you see the dirt path kind of dead end back into the forest.
Oh,
I'll
let's-
step up.
I still don't like it. We should not go
I'll step
there.
up to like the
That's
end of
stupid.
the dirt path and just kneel and just try and I'll feel the ground, trying to just feel any sort of I don't know if a cleric can feel any sort of magical energies, just trying to figure out what's going on.
You can make a wisdom roll under.
Okay. I just rolled a natural 1 under my 18 wisdom.
Wow. Okay, Oldrad, you kneel down, you kind of put your hand on the ground and you sort of close your eyes, meditating upon what's here or what was here. And for a moment, you open your eyes and you see the hedge maze, you see the walls, you see the chateau, but they're transparent, almost as if they're there, but they're not there.
Mm-hmm.
And you come to this understanding that this has something to do with time. Like your instinct is that the cursed chateau has something to do with time and the temporal anomaly that you guys all seem to have experienced.
Mm-hmm.
You're not sure how.
Right.
Somehow your instinct is that this must somehow be connected. And you feel like the answers to your questions are known by the old gods.
Right. I stand up looking towards where the cursed chateau would be if it was there to the rest of the group and tell them, I don't know how, I don't know why, but I could feel the chateau is still there somehow. And there just seems to be some sort of anomaly of time cursing it. And we obviously experienced some of that. And
Can you guide us on its border so we don't cross it, so we don't?
I feel like I can
inside?
do that. I feel like I can
So
do that.
none of you guys see the cursed chateau or any evidence of it. You just see forest, the same kind of forest that you've been in. Oldrad, when you turn around, there's no ghost of the chateau. It's gone.
Yeah.
It's just forest.
Yeah. But I can kind of like have a sense of like where I thought it was and like
Yes.
try and guide us around that imaginary area.
Yes.
Yeah.
I wanna
we-
do
And
that.
you
we
begin
would-
to do so.
We remember kind of how large it was.
Yeah.
Yes. So you kind of go following the creek and you guys walk and walk and walk all afternoon. You travel through the forest. I'm going to have all of you make one more bushcraft roll. So roll a d6 and let me know if you got a 1.
Negative.
I will roll.
1.
There you go.
Nice.
I'll roll for Bane and for Liber. Fail. Anybody
I
other
got-
than Leonard get a 1?
I got a 1.
Okay, so as it is late afternoon, like early evening, Sarah and Leonard, you feel like you guys have traveled for probably a good 15 miles total. And you're fairly certain that you're at least far north enough to be close to Agnur. And you begin to kind of head east. And you travel for another 3 miles. And as it is dusk, you kind of come out of the dense forest into more sparse trees. You travel about another half mile, and you see a wooden palisade around what looks like a small village. And you see some farms outside of that you're kind of walking past as you're walking towards the village. Claude, I would say that because you grew up in Lee County, you're familiar enough. You would have traveled to Agnur at some point because it's the nearest village to Lee County. So it's reasonable that you would know like what it looks like.
Okay.
What you see is a little bigger than what you remember Agnur looking like. You don't remember the wooden palisades being as robust. And you see like the tops of a couple 2-story buildings kind of peeking up above the wooden palisade. So it
Mhm.
almost seems to you like Angner's maybe a little more built up than what you remember it being.
All right. Well, guys, this doesn't match with my memory of Engdar. It looks bigger, almost like it grew beyond what I know it to be.
And I should also mention that you guys, when you came out of the forest, you saw that there was probably like a few acres of cleared forest, like stumps, as if perhaps there was some kind of lumber industry in that area.
Mm-hmm.
Should we?
If it's
Go
more
in.
than 10 years, then it had to change. Like, don't expect it to be the same.
Yeah,
Should
but
we?
I felt like we went back because they didn't know about the present, and this would be seeming later than my time, if that makes sense. So I'm just
Or
confused here.
perhaps the stories of the
Hmm.
county didn't really reach the ears of the people in the inn or outside much. And if it was the Red Crescent, they were probably trying to squash those rumors as well.
I don't know.
You know how to address the Red Crescent if you meet them?
You talking to me?
None of you have
No, I'm
Ever-
talking to
ever-
Claude.
none of you have ever even heard of what Claude's talking about.
Should we observe from distance or go there right now?
Well, Steiner is
the-
walking, like, now that you're out of the woods, he's walking full pace. He actually picks up like the 4-year-old and has the 6-year-old in his hand, and his wife is carrying the 2-year-old, and they're walking at a pretty steady pace.
I'm following. I'm not leaving them
Yeah.
behind.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yep.
We're
Following.
going
So-
in.
As you guys come closer, you again, Claude, you see you're just
Amazed.
thrown off a little bit by the fact that Angner seems to have expanded. Like, it seems like a bigger town than you remember it.
Mm-hmm.
And the Palisades, as you get closer, it's becoming clear to you that these are really strong wooden walls that they've built around the town. And it looks like the town itself has expanded, and they built these Palisades around this. You guys come to, at last, like an actual road that leads kind of from the west, from the lumber yards and the farms into the town. And there's a gate with like 2 gate guards outside of it who have lanterns, and there's 4 guards on the Palisades, all of whom have bows. And one of the guards says, "That's far enough," and he walks towards you. And you're about 50 feet away from the gate. And he kind of walks confidently toward you with the lantern. And
Hoping.
you notice as he gets closer with the light of his lantern that he's wearing armor, and his armor, Claude, you recognize the symbol of Lee County on his armor. And he says, "Well, travelers," he says, "what brings you to Angner?" Steiner says, "I have family here. We were a bit lost. Took us longer than expected." He says, "May we enter?" And he says, "Well," he looks at all of you. He says, "Yeah, of course." He says, "Right this way." And he turns and starts walking back to the gate. And you see him kind of put his hand up in the air, and you hear the creaking of the gate as it's opening. He brings you up to the entrance of the gate, and you see just inside the gate to your left is a small wooden building. and there's a door that's kind of a half door, and there's a man standing behind the door, and you could see behind him is like an open room with a lot of wood shelves. And the older man that's inside the building is just kind of standing there waiting. The guard says, "You'll have to check all of your weapons." He says, and he points to the man in the building. Steiner says, "I have no weapons." And another guard comes up and pats down Steiner. And then he nods. And the first guard says, "Okay, you're free to go." And Steiner looks to all of you and he says, "Thank you, my friends. Thank you so much for your kindness, for escorting us." He says, would we perhaps be able to meet up at the inn?"
Sure.
Sure. Yeah. I need that information.
"The Gray Mare is the inn just down this street. We should meet up there." And
Okay.
he starts walking off towards the inn. The guard waits for you guys, and he says, you can check your weapons.
Why are
Okay,
we
I'll-
required
I'll-
to check our weapons?
When you ask why you're required, he kind of looks at you oddly. He says, "Well, that's the law." He says,
Yeah, don't you remember? Everywhere we go, we have to check our weapons. It's not a big deal. I take off my sword. I take off my bow and my arrows. May I keep this dagger for eating?
"No."
Okay. Hand over the dagger.
All right, so so Sarah approaches. The old man inside the building takes all the stuff, and you see him kind of put it into almost like a wooden cubby, like a box that's in the shelves. And then he pulls out a wooden token, and he hands it to you, and it has a number on it.
What about the armor?
Guard's like, "Armor's fine."
Okay, cool. All right,
Yeah.
I'm done.
Yeah, Bivoj
Okay.
puts everything there. He's like,
Okay.
okay, there are the arrows, there is longbow, there is the spear, there is the dagger, and there is nothing more. Sorry.
Okay. The old man, just like before, basically takes your stuff, puts it into a wooden locker, gives you a wooden token with a number on it. I'll just ask this. Is anyone not checking their weapons?
I'm checking
Or-
it, but
The guard
But
the
I-
guard is basically visually checking each person. So if anyone's trying to sneak a weapon, you're going to have to make a roll to sleight of hand that.
can I have a question? If I have like a sword from the armory from the chateau, is it still with me or is it gone as well?
Oh yeah, anything that you got from the chateau is with you.
Okay, so just check it in.
I check my stuff.
Okay. Now, Oldrad, did you have the great sword from the chateau?
I sure did.
Okay. I'll let all of you guys make a wisdom roll under.
Nope.
5 under my 18.
I just barely made it, like 5 out of 6.
I got
Okay.
3 under 6.
I'm going to use a modern analogy to explain this. When Oldrad checks the greatsword, the reaction on the old man's face and on the guard's face is kind of like, imagine that you went to do valet parking, and you see, a bunch of normal cars, and then somebody rolls up in like a Lamborghini. That's kind of the reaction. Like you see like the old man like take the greatsword, and he looks at it and he's like in shock. And you see his eyes look up at the guard, and the guard looks at the greatsword, and then looks at Oldrad, and then looks back at the greatsword. The old man puts all of Oldrad's weapons, including the greatsword, into a wooden locker and hands him a wooden token. But you definitely noticed a reaction.
Right.
After all of you guys have checked your weapons, you get your tokens. Each of them has a different number, which you assume corresponds to the locker that your stuff is in. The guard says, "Welcome to Aegner. You're free to go." And then he does a hand signal again, and the gates close. You guys start walking through the town, and it's at this point, Claude, that you're definitely, you recognize a few buildings as you walk into town, but there are a few new ones that you don't remember being there. And some of them are 2-story buildings. But you definitely get the impression that this town has grown.
Okay.
You guys walk about 3 blocks and you come to a corner building. It's a 3-story inn. Huge building with a stone foundation and wood construction and a big kind of corner front porch. And it has a wooden sign hanging from a wrought iron post. And you see it's a picture of a gray horse. You guys go into the inn, and upon entering, it is bustling. You see just a bunch of people inside. There's even music being played. And the innkeeper greets you. He asks if you want rooms, which I'm assuming you respond that you do. He tells you that he can accommodate you. And you see Steiner coming down the stairs as you guys are getting your rooms arranged. And he kind of goes up to you and he says, "Thank you once again." He's like, "My family's in a room," and he's like, once you're settled, let's meet down here in the tavern and we can discuss further." And that is where we will end this episode of the Lamenters, everybody. Thanks as always for tuning in, for liking and subscribing, and thanks of course to my patrons who make all of this possible. Happy gaming and peace out.
Well, hello, and welcome to Blayne Allen World. I am Wizzy, the Wizard. I'm back once again to remind you to subscribe and click on the notifications button, and also watch videos that are over there. Tune in to the next episode of whatever show you are just watching, and watch other shows featuring Bill. He made me say that because he's a narcissist. Okay, bye.